Hey Libra, how's it going? Before I begin, I'd just like to say, never leave a candle unattended. Before turning on the camera, when I was meditating, I got an image of curtains burning. And nothing else burned, just the curtains. Thank God the house didn't burn down. But as I saw this, it just opened up to a nice window that was looking outside, and it was just like a beautiful sunny day outside. I couldn't really see details. But I got an impression that it was like maybe a natural scene. I think there's also some built environment outside. Maybe there were buildings. I saw a lot of greenery. I also saw some gray. But it was nice and sunny outside, and like curtains just burned away in orange flame. But the curtains were the only things that burned. But anyway, you know, on a literal note, just always be careful with candles. But I think there's like this idea that, you know, sometimes you gotta just get out of the house, or sometimes you have to get out of a funk, or something's gonna get you out of a funk, whether you want to or not. And it could be a good thing. This was like a very controlled fire, like I said. It wasn't like a wild flame that like combusted or like took over the curtains. They're like small flames that kind of like, you know, when you burn a piece of paper, but it's not like flaming, it's just like orange and glowing on the edge, kind of a thing, like fire-safe cigarettes, you know? It was kind of like that, with just some flame. And as soon as the curtains were gone, the fire was gone. And it was a smokeless fire as well. There was no smoke coming off of the curtains. And smokeless flame is generally a symbol for spiritual intelligence. And maybe there's something happening in your life that's opening your eyes. There's some spiritual knowledge that is taking you out of a dark room and letting you see the brightness that really exists. You may have been in like a spiritual darkness, closed up within yourself, and something is awakening you to a more complete and pleasing reality. And I got an I Ching hexagram for you, 38, Kui, or diversity, with a fourth changing line. So diversity changes to decreasing. Now, maybe the numbers 38 and 41 are significant for you. Diversity here is symbolized by the elements of fire on top of lake. So we have an image of fire, which moves upward, interesting, like the curtains, and lake, which flows downward. So we have these two opposing forces that are diverse. They are divergent. They are essentially incompatible and in opposition to each other, even estranged from each other. These are some key words. They go against one another. There's also, I got this sense of centrifugal force. A centrifuge is like something that spins really fast to separate components out from each other. Generally, they are used to separate the components of a suspension or a solution. A suspension is like when more than one thing comes together, but they're not dissolved into each other. Like imagine having a jar of water and sand, and you shake it up, and the sand gets all mixed in with the water, but they don't dissolve into each other. The sand is still sand and the water is still water. That's called a suspension. A solution is when the two things dissolve into each other and mingle with each other. So if you put salt in a jar of water and shook it up, well, now you have like salt water. It's more of a solution. And they're usually a little bit more permanent solutions. But there are some solutions and some centrifuges that can separate not only suspensions, but also solutions. So there's always a chance to separate things that have been dissolved within each other. But of course, it's easier to separate those things that are only in suspension with each other and not actually dissolved in each other. And this might sound kind of inauspicious. You have like incompatibilities and going against each other and going against the grain maybe. You know, maybe you don't fit in with a certain group or with a certain dynamic or with certain ideas, and you just naturally go against these ideas. But this is actually kind of an auspicious sign to get. It's like that sort of natural diversity. Like imagine, if any of you have siblings, grew up with siblings, that you will have different interests and you will take different paths in life. That's just the way things go in a family. You will see things probably differently than the way your parents see these things, differently than the way your aunts and uncles and cousins see them. And you all go different ways and have different beliefs, and that's fine. And that shouldn't stop you from enjoying the holidays with each other. You know what I mean? Unfortunately, in today's stupid world, it does affect the Thanksgiving dinner table because people, I don't need to get into that. But the idea is experiencing this diversity, but in harmony with everyone around you. Diversity doesn't have to cause problems. It's all about our attitude and how we deal with the diversity, because we can celebrate our differences while trying to find common ground. The differences don't have to tear you apart as long as you respect each other's differences and come to understand why these differences exist, and don't attempt to get rid of these differences. Maintain your differences. You don't have to agree with each other. You don't have to be the same as one another. But with your attitude, you can still commingle and coexist, and seek that common ground. However, there's a bit of a paradox here, because with diversity, obviously, there are some dangers in diversity. And at this time, whatever you're seeking, you will probably find its opposite. Diversity is a lot about opposites and polarities, and getting polarities confused. This is sort of the negative side, even though this is mostly an auspicious sign, and it's about having harmonious attitudes and things like that, and easily finding these harmonious attitudes despite the diversity. There sometimes is a difficulty here, and whatever you're looking for, whatever you're seeking, you will probably find its opposite. So if you're seeking heaven, you will find earth. If you're seeking earth, you will find heaven. That kind of idea. So seeking at this time might be extremely tricky and counterintuitive. Learning might be very counterintuitive and difficult to accomplish. Seeking that common ground also might be difficult to accomplish. So there's a trick. If you're actively seeking common ground, you probably won't find it. You will probably make the division and diversity worse. And because if you put like that active energy in let's find common ground, it will create a friction, where a more hands-off approach is probably the move right now. And this doesn't have to be like diversity in a social situation or a familial situation. This could be in a learning experience for you. Having a diversity of ideas, you have this new knowledge that might be going against old views and old beliefs, and they are incompatible with each other. It could be something like, I don't know why I just thought of this. This is a weird example. Imagine someone who really believes in the scientific concept of evolution, and they don't believe in the sort of ancient advanced civilizations like Atlantis. They think those are all lies and fairy tales and whatnot, because they really believe in evolution. So those two ideas are incompatible. If there was a highly advanced civilization, more advanced than ours, in the past, that completely goes against the theory of evolution, which says we should be the most advanced because we're the furthest in the future. And this has the belief of linear time, that time moves forward and things get more advanced. Technology gets more advanced, evolution gets more advanced, the human race gets more advanced on a linear time scale. To accept the possibility that Atlantis was real is incompatible with that view of linear progressivism and evolutionism. One of those views has to be given up. If you accept the possibility that Atlantis was real, maybe you found some compelling evidence that it could be. And now your whole view of linear timescales and evolution, you realize is incompatible with this new knowledge you've discovered. And they are completely at odds with each other. And you don't know which one to believe in. And if you seek more truth one way or the other, you will probably wind up proving the opposite view. So if you try to seek more about Atlantis, you'll probably end up proving to yourself more about evolution. And if you try to bolster your beliefs in evolution, you'll probably stumble across more evidence for Atlantis. That sort of concept, that sort of idea. And it probably isn't going to help. It's probably not going to help your situation. So a hands-off approach where you just kind of let this paradox exist in your mind, whatever this paradox is, don't push it too hard one way or the other. Don't push it too hard in one direction or another. Just sit with it. Allow the paradox and the incompatibility to exist. Allow fire to flow upward and water to flow downward. Like, just allow it to happen and don't push it at this time. Because with this changing line here, this fourth changing line, is this concept of being isolated, which says to me that if this diversity is a real social situation or a family situation, you are going to be estranged from these people, and there's really not much you can do about it, and you probably shouldn't force the issue. If this has nothing to do with other people, if this is something going on in your own inner life, then again, you will have these isolated and incompatible beliefs, and you will feel isolated from whatever, different groups who believe different things. You won't really fit in with these different people who have beliefs, and at this time you don't have beliefs. You have paradoxes that are unresolved, and so you won't really fit in with certain discussion groups, let's say, or certain academic committees or something like that. You will kind of feel like you are isolated from them. And that's fine, because the other thing in the Yao text that came up is the phrase, meets the initiator and fuses truth and sincerity. Now, this is strange. Like, a phrase like meets the initiator is very odd in the Yao text. It's very unique, because most phrases are like, remains upright and steadfast, no fault, good to have a place to go. Like, there are always these very simple phrases that repeat a lot. You'll hear good to have some place to go like 100 times in the Yao text, or like good to like seek great advice, something like that. And you'll see those like 100 times in the text. This meets the initiator shows up once in the entire text, just here, just for the fourth changing line. It's a very unique phrase, and it's not really explained who or what is the initiator. Like, it's a weird phrase for this book, for the I Ching, for the Yao text, and it's almost incomprehensible because of its uniqueness. So there's a sense of isolation, and this meets the initiator, and then you fuse together truth and sincerity, and then it says the phrase no fault, which is quite common. So when I had that sight of the burning curtains that revealed a new vista, a new landscape, a new view, and it was a smokeless fire, like a spiritual initiation, that smokeless fire can represent a spiritual bit of knowledge, or a spiritualized intellect, a spiritual intelligence, a spiritual entity. And initiators tend to just initiate you when you're spiritually and psychologically ready for it. And a highly advanced initiator, whether it's a human being or a suprahuman or a non-human, they will know when you are spiritually and psychologically prepared, very likely before you know. And so spiritual awakenings can seem like they're spontaneous, like they're just randomly happening at a time when we might not feel like we were prepared for it, or just like at some strange moment where you just kind of have an epiphany or a shift in consciousness, and you didn't really make it happen, but you kind of did. You did work on yourself for probably many years, maybe your entire life, maybe many lifetimes, and you made yourself into fertile soil for some initiator to burn away the curtains finally, to pull the scales from your eyes, as another quote goes. Or sometimes initiators take the initiative and they wake you up when they believe that you're ready. And it can be kind of shocking and frightening, or at least somewhat startling, because we didn't know we were ready. But someone might think you are, and might have like done something to help you shift your consciousness or to see something. You know, sometimes we have what some people call shorter persavs, short duration personal savior. These are people that we sometimes meet who have some perspective or some knowledge or unlock some experience for us that changes our consciousness for the better, changes our lives for the better. And we might have many of these people show up in our lives for a very short time. You know, short duration personal saver, shorter persav. So maybe you met a shorter persav recently and it had a beneficial awakening effect on you. While you're in this state of isolation, sometimes there are people who fit in with us, and they'll show up for a moment or a few days or something like that, or just one hangout session or something. And or maybe there's some book you read or some article you read. You know, there's the Philip K. Dick concept of God in the trash. Maybe you heard an advertisement on TV that there's just a perfect string of words that you overheard and it made you realize something. Or like you saw an ice cream wrapper in the gutter on the street and like there was a certain word or phrase on this ice cream wrapper that like totally blew your mind and shifted your consciousness. You know, it's like God communicates with us in like the trashiest, most unrecognizable places. While we feel isolated. And if we are feeling isolated and we just do things like watch TV or eat junk food or surf the internet, like God will find a way to hit you where you live and communicate with you there anyway. Even though you might feel isolated from all that sort of spiritual knowledge, like it'll find a way to get to you no matter what. That's the definition of omnipotent, is it not? So maybe you had an experience like that. And those are lovely, beautiful experiences that can really have a profound effect on us because they're just so simple and intimate and yet so profound. Carl Jung calls these things like synchronicities. So look out for synchronicities. Pay attention to those sorts of things right now. Take a hands-off approach to any sorts of belief changes or knowledge seeking that you're going through right now. There's a sit with paradoxes and contradictions and don't try to figure them out. You know, sometimes a paradox is a seed that gets planted and you can't force a seed to grow. It just has to germinate on its own, in its own time. And then like later on down the road, you're like, oh, I get it. That's how the paradox is resolved. Gotcha. Good thing I didn't force that. I might have derailed its growth. So it's a very interesting hexagram. I really enjoyed this, this reading so far. So I'm going to spin a coin. It's going to land on a symbol, one of these 24 aspects of reality. The oracle will have us focus on one, and I'll pull some cards for you, and we'll develop this reading. So, oracle, what does Libra need to know? It's not pointing at anything, went right off the board. Let's try that again. What does Libra need to know? The alchemical symbol for air. The upward triangle with the line through it. So air, that's thoughts, intellect. Interesting. We have a lot of thoughty kind of stuff coming in today. The smokeless fire that burned away the curtains. Holding paradoxes. So yeah, air, you know, in the deck of tarot cards, that would be swords, right? Intellect, mind, could just be lightness, coldness, and humidity are the sort of, you know, cold and humid are the characteristics of air according to medieval alchemy. If you know about like the humors, like cold, hot, dry, and humid. Air is cold and humid. Wait. Or is it cold and dry? Oh, crap. Well, I'm having a brain fart. I'm going to need to check my notebooks, which I'm not going to do on camera here. It's easy to find. Look up Paracelsus or Galen and the humors. I'm sure the search engine on the internet will lead you aright. So the air element in your life, Libra. What have we got for your air element? You know, fire flowing upward, water flowing downward. It makes me think of like things turning to gas, elements sublimating into air. Air is an expansive element. Similarly to water, it fills the container into which it's poured, only in this case in all directions. So this diversity of up and down might be slowly transmuting into an expansion in all directions for you, which is another reason don't force the paradox of fire and water. Just let the flame burn out, let the water boil up on its own time, and then you'll have that multi-directional gas. That expansive awareness, that sublimated awareness. We have the moon. Here, this is, in this deck, instead of a lobster crab thing, we have a winged scarab beetle, sort of ready to take flight. So yeah, this does tell me that a seed was planted in your subconscious, or perhaps even in your conscious, but then deeply, deeply buried into your subconscious. And we have two pillars here, which to me indicates two perhaps opposing ideas or forces that are existing in parallel to each other, you know, an either or type of a dilemma. But if you zoom out, you start seeing it as a both and instead of an either or. But that only comes with time, and that only comes with this soft moon dew that sprinkles down from your imaginative mind slowly. You know, we can't force our imagination to come up with solutions to problems. Our imagination sort of germinates on its own. We also need sleep to help with our imagination. You know, when a lot of people are trying to solve a problem, scientists and mathematicians report this all the time. But this goes for anyone. It's happened to me a bajillion times where like I'm racking my brain about some problem that needs to be solved, some solution to an issue that I'm dealing with, and I just can't figure it out for the life of me. And then I go to sleep that night, and then I wake up, and then I go to my workstation again, and immediately I solve the problem. It's just there. It's like, oh my God, how did I not think of that yesterday? Well, it's because I had to allow the seed to germinate within my astral body, and then in sleep time, you experience your astral body more completely than we do while we're awake. And we experience the astral world, the dream world, the imaginal realm. There are different names for it. It's all the same place. And when we sleep and experience the astral realm, the solution becomes more tangible. In the astral realm, you can see more possibilities than you can in the physical world. And so you can play with those possibilities in your sleep, and you might not even remember doing it when you wake up. A lot of us don't remember our dreams when we wake up. So you'll play with a lot of possibilities, simulate a lot of possible futures, a lot of possible solutions, and you'll find the best solution by allowing your imagination the time and space it needs to do it. And the moon dew slowly falls to the earth. The knowledge of the astral realm will manifest in your life, but into the physical world, but on its own time. You know, this card rules the realm of Yesod, or foundation on the tree of life, where that is essentially our imaginal realm, and all of human culture, human ingenuity, everything we do as humans starts there. It's called the foundation of, and then from that realm, you have the physical realm. So if you have all these spiritual impulses that come together to create the physical world, that imaginal realm is the last phase before material manifestation. And that's where a lot of solutions to problems come from. It's where inventions and culture and ideas and laws and creativity and all sorts of stuff that makes up human life comes from. It's first created in the foundation, in the astral, in the imaginal realm, and then it manifests here. And a lot of that just requires a sort of hands-off approach, at least in the physical world. When you sleep, it's probably very hands-on in that dream, where you're simulating with the astral energies. You can make things move a lot quicker. You can see how things work a lot faster, whereas in the physical world, we have to wait for processes to unfold and things like that. We're limited by time and space and physical strength and physical skill. In the astral world, we don't have these limitations, and we can quickly go places and see how things work and make things and move things and acquire things and expend things, and it can all happen instantaneously there. So it's very easy to simulate solutions in the astral world. And you might just need a good night's sleep, and the answer will be there when you wake up. But there's a paradox deep that was planted within your subconscious, and you're not going to be able to consciously deal with it at this time. And that's okay. I'm getting the sense that it's not really a problem. It just feels like a problem. It's one of those annoying things that you want to like just deal with as quickly as possible. But you can't. Like a military captain on a naval vessel who's in the middle of a battle. And sometimes battles last days. You know, war is difficult. And that captain doesn't want to sleep. He wants to stay awake and finish the battle and win the battle. And he wants to know everything that's going on all the time. And he doesn't want to go back to his bunk to sleep because there's shells exploding and people shouting and, you know, people dying and enemies making moves. And it's like, if the captain doesn't get a good night's sleep every night, he is going to be delusional and make really bad decisions. Sleep is a military strategy. It is necessary to win a battle. If a battle's lasting a long time, sleep deprivation is a horrible, horrible thing, and it makes you make insane decisions. You're not doing anyone any favors by avoiding sleeping. What I mean is, you gotta allow the paradox to exist and get the rest you need, and let your mind gestate on its own. Let your imagination be fertilized and gestated at its own pace. There's no forcing this to happen any quicker. So I'm going to pull another card for you. We have Unity. Isn't that interesting? We have the itching hexagram of diversity and the card of Unity. So here we have these sort of birds drinking out of a bird bath feeder thing. And like a flower, two flowers, they look like they're growing in opposite directions, but they sort of share a stem there. And these birds came together to share from the same cup. So we have these diverse beings, two birds, two flowers, but sharing the same nourishment. So even in diversity, we have unity. Even the multifarious, diverse phenomena of reality, the diverse creatures and people and things, all drink from the same well, that well which is spirit, or in this case, a bit more closer to the material world, the foundation, the astral realm, the imaginal realm. So struggling, well, not necessarily struggling, but attempting to find that unity and diversity is going to come naturally to you. Going back to that Atlantis versus evolution theory, right? You might find a solution where you can kind of hold on to both views, where you can modulate your idea of linear time or perhaps cyclical time, and instead of seeing time as a perfect cycle of the circle or time as a perfect line, perhaps you can find a thing where they're both true, where time is like a spiral. So there are cycles that repeat, but on higher and higher octaves, like a line that progresses. So you can see a cyclical history, like a civilization rising and falling, then another civilization rising and falling, then another rising and falling. And it can make you think that, oh, time is just a circle and nothing ever changes. If you get stuck in the other view, it's everything is better than it was in the past. It's just a straight line. Everything is better than it was in the past. And this is delusional. because history shows us that that is just not a tenable belief. So maybe there is this happy medium you could find. The paradox resolves itself in the spiral geometry, where there is both progress and cyclical cycles. What a redundant thing to say. But anyway, that's just an example of how you will easily, with your fertile imagination, you will find this solution to your paradox. There's not going to be a problem with doing that. I'm going to pull a token for you. One last thing for Libra to tie this all together. And yeah, if this is a social issue, divergent people, problems in a social dynamic or differences being exhibited and causing some type of issue, you all will find the common ground, but probably by like taking a break from each other for a minute and just like recollecting yourselves. And then like, you know, things will simmer down and you'll come back together in a better mood or in a better state of mind and be like, okay, here's the common ground. Our differences don't matter. Or they do matter, but they're good. You know, you'll like have a realization like that just by taking some time off. So one last thing for Libra. What does Libra need to know? Okay, man, I have 64 of these tokens and I keep pulling like the same dozen. Maybe one day I'll get to show you the rest of them. But hey, if this is what the Oracle wants, it's what the Oracle wants. So we've got the astrological symbol for Cancer, a little star up there, and the number 4. So here, this might be something with your family or on the home front where there's this divergence within family members. Different people want different things. They're acting differently. There seems to be a bit of an incoherence in your household. But it's that natural kind of thing that happens with families over time. It's just growing pains. It's just the children finding their place, the parents finding their place, the siblings finding their place. This causes adversity. This causes argument and confusion and annoyance and things like this and misunderstanding and all of that. But to me, this is just that natural thing. Like, take a breath. Your kids aren't losing their minds. They're just trying to figure themselves out. It's not gonna last forever. The whatever arguments or problems that are showing up. You know, if your son is threatening to run away, he'll be back. You know, let him sleep over at his friend's house. For others, if this is not an interfamilial dynamic, this is perhaps divergent emotional states that you're holding simultaneously within your heart center that are very, very difficult to reconcile. On the extreme end of things, this would be like a bipolar issue. That these emotions, the fact that you can feel them both at the same time already says that they can belong together, despite the fact that it feels like right now they cannot. Eventually they will, or they might become separated with those centrifugal forces, and you'll be able to see each of these emotions on its own while simultaneously feeling them. And you'll have this sort of awakening by understanding the nature of these emotional states, because you know, perhaps your heart center is just spinning and spinning really fast, and these emotional states are going to sort of separate from each other, and you'll clearly see them both for what they are and understand them in detail because they separated. So you can see them on their own, even though you're feeling them simultaneously. You'll intellectually see them and gain insight about them, and then they'll swirl on back together, and they might become like a solution or a suspension where they mix with each other and become a third emotion that you didn't even know existed before. And now you've just expanded your emotional capacity. What you thought was a problem, an emotional problem, which may have been an emotional problem, is about to become a unified personality construct. It's going to mix into a new emotion that perhaps you've never felt before, and now you can. And now you've just expanded your capacity for feeling. You've just expanded your emotional nature. You've just opened up to a new horizon of human existence, of human life, of human perception, of human feeling, and even thinking to a degree, because you're consciously aware of this now. And it could be very, very difficult at first. It may have been very difficult. Like, these emotional issues are very, very hard to deal with, but it's part of a mixing process. It's part of a separating and mixing process that is actually going to expand your capacities as a human being. So that's really interesting. That's cool. I think that's all the oracle I have for you today, Libra. I think I'm going to leave it there. Thank you so much for hanging out with me. I always appreciate seeing you. I wish you all the best, and I'll see you next time.